All right. So just want to welcome you guys to the Harvard Kennedy School first of two webinar series. We're going to be covering a very, very important topic, obviously, today, which is really kind of the uncertainty that's happening around the Harvard Kennedy School, but more importantly, how to kind of put yourself in the best situation possible to really give yourself a good chance of admission to this incredible program. I myself am a graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School, very proud alum of the school. I'm still involved in it to the extent that I'm involved in the alumni council for the Center for Public Leadership as a member, and wanted to share this information with you so that you have a better idea and not discount the Harvard Kennedy School, but still seek to apply to it despite all the uncertainties that we have. And we're going to talk through a lot of that stuff today. I'm wearing my hat and my shirt to manifest and be as optimistic as possible about Harvard's future. All right, here we go. So, quick background of myself. I founded Right Track Admissions back in 2008. Uh, went to UCLA as for an undergrad, did my law degree at Berkeley, did my first master's in Cambridge in England, and then obviously I did my master's at the Kennedy School back in 2016, 2017, almost 10 years ago, which is wild to think that it was that long ago. Um, and as you'll see there in that picture, I was doing Harvard, what they call a HKS talk that I did at the school there. What's cool is that I received a full ride scholarship, or what's called a fellowship, at the program through the Center for Public Leadership. It was called an ELI fellowship, and I later was on the selection committee for the ELI fellowship, helping find the best candidates that would most benefit from and most give back to the fellowship itself and be a member of the Center for Public Leadership. I later was an alumni co-chair of the Alumni Council of CPL, and now I'm a member for the last year. So nearly 5 years on the council there, learning more and seeing the growth of the Center for Public Leadership and seeing how HKS has been able to navigate a very, very difficult period of its time and history. All right. So that's my background, why I think I'm qualified to do what I'm doing today. But more importantly, I also wrote the only guidebook, admissions guidebook, on the Harvard Kennedy School. There you can see a little bit of the table of contents. There's the book. And producing webinars just like this one to provide you guys with as much information as possible to get you guys in the best situation possible to help you gain admission to this incredible program at Harvard. The Harvard Kennedy School Admissions Mastery Guide covers a ton of stuff, everything from are you the right candidate for HKS, which master's program is best suited for you, how to start gathering all your information, how to put together your application, when to submit, how to secure financial aid, how to maximize your time at the Kennedy School, and so forth. So really a comprehensive book. I've never seen anything like it, and I hope you guys will benefit from it. You can go to to our website, which we'll share in the link here to get more information on it. But hopefully it will provide you guys with a very solid foundation of everything you need to know about how to get into the Kennedy School, something that I developed obviously after having attended there and helped a lot of clients gain admission to the program. All right. And of course, if you have any questions about the process, about the program, about anything I'm saying today, please post in the comments below so that we can provide that information for you. All right. Let's go to the next slide. All right. Let's move to the next slide. So here are the main, what we think are the main problem areas that afflict HKS applicants. Not knowing which degree best suits them. Again, this is why we discuss it in the book. Confused about how to craft the new, like a unique story and narrative, which is so important, and one of the backbones and fundamental parts of the Kennedy School application. Guys, of every possible policy program that I've ever helped anyone apply to, and which is pretty much all of them from memory, whether it's Princeton, Harris, Harris, Jackson and Yale, whether it's SEPA and Columbia, whether it's LSE, Oxford, Cambridge. I mean, you name it. We've worked on the application Sciences Po, Sorbonne. I mean, you name the policy related programs, we've worked on them. The Kennedy School is probably the most difficult. It's got the most essays. It is it is just really, really a difficult application to kind of piece together. Um, because there's so many essays and so many parts to it, and you really want to kind of stand out as an applicant in terms of your application. So you really want to know like the unique story, that narrative that really allows you to stand out, that really kind of bodes well with what they're looking for. Remember, their main motto is ask what you can do, not what your country can do for you. That concept of what Kennedy said in 1960 when doing his inaugural address: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So that same concept of what you can do from that perspective. So it's probably one of the most difficult aspects of the application process that really afflicts our clients. Lack of support, mapping out the testing strategy, figuring out should you take the GRE, do you have to? Do you have to take the TOEFL? Do you have to take what tests do you take? When to submit them? How many times to take them? Who should be the best recommenders? What specific concentrations you should be looking at? Putting together the resume, the essays, so not just finding the story, but piecing it together into a compelling profile, figuring out that optional statement, how to use it to mitigate any profile weaknesses, and then issues really balancing all of that with test taking and your professional pursuits and so forth. So a lot kind of going on there that really kind of throws people off as it pertains to the Kennedy School. We got a question from Anna. It says, as an alum of HKS, what do you think are the best qualities for the HKS candidate? And you read my mind because I think that was it. Yeah. Well, these are the key qualities that the Kennedy School will look for. So we'll definitely talk about that. So just give me 1 second. We're going to get to it right here. Why select the Harvard Kennedy School? Or as a person, and this is kind of what I did. It. Some of the reasons were more important than others, but still, this is a fundamental part of my selection and my decision process. The mission, um, they have a deep commitment to public service, which is extremely important. And you're seeing them; they're kind of really kind of at the cutting edge of what's going on currently with the administration and so forth. So you really find that the Kennedy School is right in the belly of the beast. Sometimes on a I'm not gonna say the right side or the wrong side. That's the beauty of the Kennedy School is that they cover all sides. I like to kind of show just the differentiation of different political opinions. Just in my class alone, and again, just political ideology, we had a guy who's very conservative, who's now a congressperson in our class, in our ranks, who's as a congressman right now. And in the same class, a person who sadly passed away, who was killed, was in my class as well. An incredible, incredible individual, Melissa Hortman. And she was there. And so we have two completely opposite sides of the spectrum. And that was really what kind of made Harvard what it was. As long as you were respectful, understood people's plights and backgrounds as a classmate, then you stood to really learn a lot from other people with divergent backgrounds and who are really, in the end of the day, committed to public service in whatever ideology they had. The leaders, the faculty are at the forefront. You find a lot of the people at the Kennedy School, the professors, are at the school teaching, and then sometimes they get pulled out by the administration and they end up working in some of the highest levels of government: ambassadors, deputy secretaries, deputy secretaries of defense. I mean, you name them. They kind of constantly kind of going back and forth. They're real leaders in what they do. In fact, what I also say is at the Kennedy School, there's a curriculum for Congress people that if they're junior Congress people, they just got elected to Congress, they go through a mandatory program at the Kennedy School to kind of teach them decorum and how to be an effective congressperson. So I think you could just tell from that immediately the quality of the leaders and the kind of leaders that they farm out. The alum are absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible people. And I say this because a lot of them have gone on to be presidents, heads of state in different capacities, members of parliament, have gone on to start all sorts of nonprofits, private ventures, private sector ventures, all kinds of things. And with the with the kind of like the constant, the denominator that throughout their lives there are aspects of what they do that is connected to public service, which is very, very fundamentally important. The curriculum is very flexible, especially for mid-careers, which is what I was, and even for MPA2s, for MPPs and MPIDs. The curriculum is a little bit more focused because they're younger, and so they want to put them through more rigorous curriculum, while MPA2s and mid-careers have more professional experience, so they lean more on that and they can kind of create their own curriculum. So that's very important. The pedagogy is very interdisciplinary. It's a very interdisciplinary educational experience. So what they try to do, especially I love this with the MPP and even in the MPA2 and the MPP and the MPID, I believe, is that they have these capstone projects that are very practically oriented, and a lot of people, leverage them and angle them, the projects to get and secure jobs because they're so practically focused in different sectors. So I think that's a very, very important aspect of what also is the pedagogy itself is very experiential, very interdisciplinary, which gives you very multiple perspectives to tackle singular seemingly insurmountable problems. And then finally, the reputation of the school is really, well, now it's getting knocked about, but as a graduate from the school and having graduated from some of the top schools in the world, it really is an incredible, incredible institution, one that I'm very proud of in a lot of ways for what it does, it stands for. Obviously, there are problems. There are a lot of things that I don't like about the school itself, Harvard, but that's not unlike that any other school I've attended. They all have their goods and their bads. They have things that you may disagree with and not. But I really do appreciate being an alum of the school and seeing how it stands up to the occasion, especially what's going on right now. So those are reasons why people apply to the Kennedy School. But what does the Kennedy School look for in candidates? Well, they look for leadership and character fit. That's very, very important. Obviously, that's a big part of what the school is trying to farm out. So that's important. Um, Demonstrated, and this is really kind of demonstrated in your application essays, your resume, and your letters of recommendation. So they're looking for leadership, where you've exhibited leadership, how you exhibit leadership, and so forth. And the character, kind of do you have moral turpitude? That is something that needs to be flagged for the school. They want people with clean, good characters that are going to go on to do significant things in public service. So I think that's very, very fundamental and should come across again in your application essays, resume, and the letter of recommendation. Your professional experience, what kind of experience, the depth, the impact, not just what you did, but kind of the depth of what you've done and how you've done it, and where the public sector kind of fits into that, again, which is very, very important. I think it's very difficult I'm not say very difficult, but it's difficult to gain admission to the Kennedy School if you've been working at Goldman Sachs your whole life and now are telling them that you want to go into public service. There's got to be some kind of connection, some kind of credibility, a credible leap of faith between what you've been doing, especially if it was in the private sector, and what you want to do with in terms of your future. Commitment to public service, which I think is very, very important as well. And that is something that does come out, and that should come out again in your essays and your resume and your professional and volunteer experiences. There really should be an underlying thing, even if you say, well, listen, Hamada, I want to do a career shift. I want to do more public service. All I've been doing is private service. I've worked with clients who have that kind of profile. It's not a be all end all kiss of death, but you want to be in a situation where you can show that you've done certain things that have given back to the community. The essays themselves are begging for that kind of experience to talk about. So you definitely want to have some kind of string, some kind of connection there, some kind of thread that deals with the public service. Strong academic record obviously is very, very important as you get to the later parts of the master's programs, like a mid-career. If you can showcase where your professional experience and or your subsequent maybe graduate experience or the GRE or what have you are better and are better indicators, you can do that even if you have a lower GPA in college. I've worked with clients that had like I think a recent client got in with like a 2.9 GPA into the Kennedy School, but that's because they went on to do graduate school and they crushed it there. They had some incredible life experiences and all kinds of stuff. So it's not a kiss of death to have a lower GPA, but obviously on average, a great GPA is extremely, extremely important for the bulk majority of clients. High English proficiency, which is demonstrated in the TOEFL and the IELTS. Eventually, I don't know, but the Kennedy School may start shifting over to doing interviews, much like the business school does or the college does, to have that kind of stuff. So you just want to kind of be weary of that your English really needs to be paramount. I've worked with clients whose English are just not good enough, and I've literally told them, hey, listen, why don't you just take a year out, really brush up on your English, because you're going to be at a loss if you're in the school and your English is just subpar. I'm not going to say you need to be native by any stretch, because obviously 56% of the Kennedy School is international, but your English has to be really, really good, and it's demonstrated in those scores. And finally, vision, career goals, and why HKS. You really want to kind of show how your life, your trajectory really fits into or is going to be complemented by and elevated by the Kennedy School degree itself. So I think those are very, very important aspects of what the school looks for. If you can't articulate a really strong vision of how the Kennedy School is going to get you to where you want to go, that's going to be a ding on you. If you can't speak and demonstrate strong command of English, it's going to knock you. A good, strong academic record, a commitment to public service, a strong professional experience, especially for those people applying for MPA2s, and especially for mid-careers where you have to have, I think, 8 to 10 years of professional experience before you can apply. And then obviously, probably the most important is showing strong leadership and a good character and fit for the program and the school itself. Got a question here. Did I get a question? Sorry, I thought I had a question. No, I just want to kind of quickly show you guys in the chat there. We've got where you can kind of get the Kennedy School guide. So highly recommend there. We also have a YouTube video I did when I was on campus during my, I think, 5th year reunion that kind of does me on video talking to my classmates, awesome individuals, and really showcasing why the Kennedy School is such an incredible institution to be a part of. All right. So why is it so highly selective? Well, one, other than the fact that it's the top ranked policy school, I think year after year, I think maybe that may change, but it typically is a top ranked policy school, not just in the US, but I think almost globally. So they have a lot of outstanding applications that come in, very diverse credentials of people that apply. Again, like I said, 56% of the people are international. So you can only imagine the people that are getting accepted from these different countries. And I'm talking like out there. I don't know how many countries of people, but I'm sure there's probably been close to the total number of countries in the world have been represented at the Kennedy School, or close to that number. I would imagine. I can't imagine it's any less than 150 different nationalities have been represented at some point, or rather at the Kennedy School. But such diverse credentials of people with such backgrounds. The school quotas, look, let's be honest, even if the school doesn't say this, there's no confirmation, this is just my opinion. I think there's definitely school quotas. They're not going to have a class of just, let's look at the biggest population centers, India and China. They're not going to have a class of like 70 Indians in one public policy program. They may have 70 Indians across all the programs, or Chinese or Pakistani or Indonesians. I'm trying to think of the biggest population centers in the world. So there is a quota that you should be wary of, but again, it won't affect you because at the end of the day, you're going to try to do the best you can and apply with the best application you can. But there are school quotas that make the acceptance rate lower for certain people from certain backgrounds. Test scores obviously are important. Increased competition year after year, competition increases. This year, there's definitely going to be a bit of a slump given what's been happening with the administration and getting visas, especially for international students. But typically, it's always increasing the competition because it's such a powerful, great school on a lot of levels. And then the academic grades, we talked about the diverse credentials. That's more professional credentials and profiles, but also the academic grades are going to be very, very important, which again, what distinguishes us and gives you roughly, again, this is not a hard and fast number. Some programs, something like the MPID has even a lower percentage of acceptance. Some programs like the mid-career has a higher level of acceptance, but on average, it comes down to about 15% acceptance rate. So you can imagine I can do the math. What is that? Less than 2 in 10 are getting accepted to the Kennedy School. All right. How do you research the Kennedy School? That's going to be very important because that's going to help you form and figure out if the Kennedy School is the right fit for you. What are the benefits the Kennedy School can offer you, and what can you offer the Kennedy School? So here are a couple of places that I recommend you go and check out. Visit the website, the Kennedy School website. I think it's called, I don't even have to tell you, just Google it, but it's like HKS. Harvard.edu, or is it HKS.edu? I can't remember, but you should be, well, you know what? Maybe I could just do that. No, I can't remember. Well, it's there. So just go check out the website of the school, the social media account as well, so you can kind of see some of the breaking news and what's going on there, like live updates. I'm sure they have a Twitter account or X account, whatever it's called, as well. Check out the school blog. I love that school blog. It is absolute dynamite. There's so much excellent information. In fact, so much of the information I pulled into that guidebook was like nitpicking and going granular level through each and every aspect of the school blog to kind of pull out information straight from the horse's mouth so that you know exactly what's going on. Attend the informational sessions every time they have one. jump in there, get to know more about the school, get to know the people who are actually delivering those. I know in the Middle East, it's one of the programs that they do for the Center for Public Leadership. They have several informational sessions that they do per year. I know that HKS is always on doing road shows, so if you can get to see them in person, even better. Consider virtual tours of the campus. I think you can literally see them at any time. I think that's very, very important. I just did a video, actually, oddly enough, a Harvard walking tour because I have an own YouTube channel where I'm trying to travel to every country in the world, Final50.world. It's a shameless plug there. And as part of that, I also like do walking tours of different countries and places. And I decided to do one at Harvard, in Harvard in general, but part of that also is at the Kennedy School. So you can get to see that. Plus, you get to see that video that we just posted on the chat. So you can get a better sense of kind of the campus and the environment and so forth. So you can feel like even mention in your application. Schedule campus visits. You can do that as well. Take executive education courses. There's a course called the PLS. Is it called the PLS or PLC? I think PLC, which is the I think professional leadership credential. And for people mid-career, it's actually an interesting way of getting into the Kennedy School because if you take that course, it kind of, I'm not gonna say a back way, but it gives you a leg up to other candidates if you go through that 6 or 8 month PLC course. So it's a very interesting course that you can take to kind of elevate your chances of getting in. I talk about that also in the guidebook. And then talk to current students and alum, like myself, other people that have attended. Will be more than happy to do that. If you're going to be like, Hamada, where do we find these people other than me? Just go on LinkedIn, find folks, see if there's any commonalities, common connections, and then just message them. Say, I'd love to talk to you and pick your brain about it. People have done that all the time to me, and I'd like to pay it forward by helping people with that process. All right. Woo-ha! Tons to go through. So should you apply now or postpone for the future? That's a question that constantly comes up. We just talked about the PLC actually right there. So if your test results are not good, and you need to wait a little bit to retake it, that may be something that you want to consider. Years of professional experience. If you're just under, you may want to wait another year to apply. Market and career timing. Again, if you're an American, we're going to talk about this. I hate to see this. It really bothers me because I'm very internationally minded. I was born abroad, lived a lot of my life abroad. As I said, I'm trying to travel to every country in the world, speak different languages. So for me, I hate saying this, but for Americans and American students, there is an unintended consequence that has taken place where some international students are not going to be applying this coming year, because they're worried about what's going on and the uncertainty. So this is an opportunity for you to apply and potentially get in where maybe in another admission cycle, you may not have met the mark to be able to get admission. Maybe now you are able to. And I don't say this in any demeaning way, but it's just an arbitrage opportunity that you can take advantage of because there may be less international applicants. And we'll speak about that a little bit later. The strength of your recommenders. I don't think that should be a be all end all. If you don't get a strong relevant recommendation, just be smart about it and start now, to sort of going out there and find recommenders and try to have a couple of people as backups. If your English proficiency is not up to snuff, I talked about that's not like you can learn English in a year unless you're really dedicated to it. But if you can, and the English is not up there, then I definitely recommend that you take that time to kind of consider it. Financial aid funding. Also, maybe I've definitely worked with clients in the past and known people in the past who've gotten admitted but did not go because of funding situations and reapplied and then didn't get funding and then never went. And some did get funding and then went a year later. So there's those things. Obviously, that falls into familial as well. If it's just not the right time for you to do that. Goals and application preparation. If you just don't have the time to prepare the application, if your goal starts to shift, you want to take another year. I've definitely had clients like that who've said, hey, listen, right now I just started this new job. I really want to flex my leadership skills and then apply to the Kennedy School so I have more experience. And plus I know what I'm going to be applying to the Kennedy School for because now I'm getting that leadership experience, right? Demonstrated interest. Maybe you want to take that year out to really kind of show that you care about the school. So maybe take a couple of courses or that PLC that I was talking about that you can check out. Again, just Google it, PLC, HKS, credential program, and you'll see how and what it's about and how that can help you, especially if you're in mid-career. All right, so here are the different degrees at the Kennedy School. Again, this is information. This changes year on year. To my knowledge, it hasn't changed for this coming year. But this is typically, I'm just going to leave this up there. You guys can take a look at it, take a picture of it if you want. But there's the program that I did. I had I want to say 10 years of experience when I applied, something like that. Maybe less, maybe 9 years. So I was considered mid-career, and I also had I think that's the only requirement. The MPA two, the master's, or what's called the Masters of Public Administration, or MPA two, 2 year. You need to typically have a not specified experience, but you should be working towards or have a graduate degree there. I don't think I mentioned it there, but that's one of the requirements there. Um, Again, you have the MPID, which is probably the most competitive and most difficult. A lot of classes people take there jointly with the PhD program, so it's a really tough program. Highly respect the people that do that program. So you can imagine with the dissemination of the disseminating, that's not the word, decimating is the word I want to think, sorry, decimation of the international development scene, especially here in the US and with knock-on effects internationally. I don't know how popular that program is going to be, but I cannot imagine that this is going to be something in perpetuity. The administration will change. There will be changes. This too shall pass, as they say. So hopefully, international development, which is mission critical to the Kennedy School and to a lot of people, including myself, I did international development law for quite a number of years, is very, very important for soft power diplomacy. And then finally, you've got the MPP program. Typically, it's not typically, but it's a 2 year program, typically for people who are aspiring, as I said, they're aspiring policy professionals, analysts, and leaders with maybe 1 or 2 years of experience. I dig into this a lot deeper in the guidebook, so you'll get a chance to kind of see it there. That kind of piece that together. So you want to kind of figure out which master's degree best fits you. Trust me, it sounds like, well, no kidding. It has to be, this program and that program. Trust me, it's not that simple sometimes, because had clients who've come to me and say, I've kind of fallen in between an MPA two and a mid-career. Which one should I apply for? I love the structure of the MPP, but I've got like 7 years of experience. What should I do? So you want to find the one that really suits you, fits you, and that'll give you that, a better chance of getting into it, rather than applying for MPP and then they tell you, sorry, you actually were more qualified for MPA two than the MPP, and that, because of that, you're not going to get admitted. Okay, so something you want to consider there. Here we go. So this is a kind of an application component overview. We got a question. Do you think it's a good idea to apply directly from undergrad, or is this one of the instances where you would recommend waiting to apply? That's a great question, Anna. And I would definitely say wait to apply. Very few people will get in straight out of undergrad. They're going to want to see at least a year or two of experience. They want to know that this is where your heart lies. And how do you know that? You're only going to know that if you've actually practiced or done some professional experience to know that this is where you kind of want to be. And it does not professional experience doesn't have to necessarily be in the policy space, the public service space. It just could be a professional experience. Hopefully not like, hey, I worked, helping or worked, I don't know, like a pet store or something like that, but like something somewhat substantive, but it doesn't necessarily need to be your be all and all where your career is going to go. So great question. I would definitely take a year out before applying directly, unless your scores are phenomenal and you've done a lot of experience in terms of internships, summer internships, or during the year internships and stuff like that, before you apply, so that you have some experience as well. Again, this is from last year. I don't know if it's changed. We don't know. We won't know it's changed until September, but I want to provide this to you. This is just kind of an overview of how things look. I'll just leave it kind of there, and see if you have any questions on that. But essentially, that's kind of what the general application components are. Yeah. So the dash, by the way, is yes. You have to have transcripts. The TOEFL obviously depends on your background. If you studied in an English high school and an English university, to my knowledge, I think that's the litmus test. Or if you studied in the U.S. or if you studied in American schools, not just English schools but also American schools, it helps. Those are ways that you can kind of waive it, but you definitely want to make sure that you're not being put in a position where you think it should be waived and you don't do it, and then you end up in trouble. 3 letters of recommendation and a scaled score, which is what they put in the letters of recommendation when they do that. All right, let's keep moving. So let's get into the meat and potatoes, as they say, of the application. So here's the resume structure. I'm going to leave it there so you guys can just kind of see it and get a sense of it. But the idea here, so first start here. brainstorm everything, put it down, and just do a data dump. By the time you're applying to the Kennedy School, the chances are you probably already have a resume. So you just need to expand it and just keep adding to it and make it like 2, 3, 4 pages, right? And then you can start narrowing it down to the core stuff. You don't want to have everything in there, but you definitely don't want to leave a lot of anything out that you think is mission critical to your application. So like that, list everything that makes you stand out, not just the academics and the honors, skills, interests, publication certificates, really things that kind of make you stand out. And note the experiences that demonstrate initiative, compassion, creativity, innovation, analytical thinking, leadership. Like, think about those core qualities that the school looks for. Initiative, obviously being resourceful, compassionate, having that sense of empathy, creativity, innovation, analytical thinking, leadership. And a lot of those skills, by the way, guys, are skills that we need to be thinking about anyway to future, to be future ready, to really be future ready, which is an area that I'm getting more and more excited and interested in to really delve into. But being future ready is just so critical. It's so critical to thinking through what your career goals are. And when you're applying as a mid-career, you've already had X amount of years of experience, and those years of experience are changing every freaking day. AI's coming in, automation's coming in, things are changing like that, like literally like that. You cannot keep up. So being an analytical thinker, a critical thinker, not analytical thinker only, but a critical thinker, creative thinker is so important. Having that adaptability quadrant, the AQ, is so important, right? And you really want to kind of showcase that in your resume, and also showcase that in your application. Maybe that's why you want to come back, because you really want to brush up on those skills. And the Kennedy School is definitely over-indexing on AI related stuff. I constantly get updates about AI related stuff related to careers, job prospects, leadership, you name it. So anyway, the way I would start the resume is start off with education and activities. At the top, education with activities, as in the activities related to education. If you have a ton of experience, you could put a little bit of a career summary up there, but not mission critical. I don't think you need to, but you can if you have a lot of experience. Then you have your professional experience, titles, dates, locations, hours, summary of the company. Actually, what I also learned that the school wants is if there's gaps in your education to kind of put in where the gap is and why. So that's what you have in there. But make sure, I'm putting it in general terms, but make sure you're always reading every year. Just make sure that you're reading up on the requirements because they can change year on year. Put your volunteer experiences. I like to kind of highlight them as volunteer experiences that can really stand out. I wouldn't call them leadership experiences because leadership experiences should be baked into your volunteer experiences, your professional experiences. They shouldn't be standing on their own. Then it makes me almost feel like every other experience you've had have had no leadership quality to it. So I would call it professional experience, volunteer experiences, any other activities that fall outside the scope of volunteer and professional, as in things you got paid for, but that's not necessarily professional, but maybe other kind of roles you've had, like I taught classes. I would put into activities because I got paid for it, so it's not volunteer, but it's not really professional per se because it doesn't kind of bode with the rest of the professional trajectory I have. Skills and interests because they are unique to you. And I was just talking to recently about this. Clients will write, I love traveling, reading, cooking, running, and I always say to them, don't dig deeper because anytime I hear that, I'm not interested in having a conversation with you. Like, think about it. If you give that to someone, can somebody really have a substantive conversation with you and be like, wow, that's cool? No, they're just very plain vanilla stuff as if you just kind of cobble it together. So what I would do is like I wrote for myself when I was doing my resume just recently, brushing it up. I said fitness, and then I wrote that I had done, like, let's say, a half marathon somewhere. Um, I said art, and then I talked about how that that I help support my father's art and curate his art. Well, these are specific to me. I talked about travel, and then I talked about my channel final50.world and kind of like me creating travel content to help people see countries from different perspectives. So I put that in there, and I put the links in the resume so that they can kind of click on it and see it and kind of go through that. I also have a section in my resume on publications. There's not that many, but I put that in there, and I called it also speaking engagements. So it's publications and select speaking engagements, certificates and licenses like my bars as a lawyer and stuff like that. So just kind of a structure for your resume to think through. I would say on average it should be 2 pages, but unless you have like a lot of experience, let's say 10, 15 years of experience, maybe can be 3 pages, but typically I'd err on the side of 2 pages. All right. I want to quickly put this in there because I think it's important, the anatomy of the optional essay. If you have any concerns about your prior academic, professional, or personal background that you would like to share with the admissions committee, please provide an explanation. 250 words. I think it's such an important essay to have. It saved me when I applied to law school, and it even saved me for the Kennedy School because I didn't do very well in the GRE. And so I was able to explain it there effectively. Explain, not make excuses, guys. Explain, not make excuses. Sadly, sorry, I used the mnemonic ICE. Shame on me for using the term ICE, but at least you guys, it's something to kind of quickly remember it. Hopefully not in a bad way only, but you can see it here: introduction, context, and educational learning experience. So much introduction, that's what you want to start it off with. Like I am writing this, you have to say I'm writing, but the concept is this addendum or this optional statement is written to address 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you provide the context of what happened, explanation, not excuses. Here's this, here's that, and here's what happened. And then finally, the education learning lesson based on what happened. Here's what I learned about myself. Here's why I don't think this is indicative of my character or indicative of my academic aptitude or whatever it is, right? So that's how I would structure the optional essay. When do you need it? If you have a low score, a low GPA, a gap in your education, maybe a medical issue that caused you to have certain gaps that are relevant to your studies and career. You don't want to talk about a medical issue that has nothing to do with anything for your application, in your application, just throwing it out there like a Hail Mary, like a red herring. Don't do that. But if there is something that really kind of affected you, that made you stronger, that made you grow, that may have impacted you, but has a positive end, then that's where you put it in. And then why the LOR is not, for example, why the LOR is not a current supervisor. I've had that come up quite a few times because a lot of people don't want to talk about their supervisors. Or get a letter from the root supervisor because they don't want to rock the boat in case they don't get admitted. So they try to get it from somewhere else, and you can talk about that in the optional essay. I used it for my GRE, and I said I studied in a foreign education system at the time, and I really performed poorly, which I did on the ACT, the SAT. I don't have a diagnostic learning disability. That's another example of where you can talk about the GRE as a standardized test. But from my perspective, I always said that I studied in a British international system, did poorly on the SAT, crushed undergrad. When I applied to law school, I did poorly on the LSAT, but I did well enough in law school, was on the law review and so forth. Now I'm taking the GRE, and while I'm not doing well, I'm confident that based on my past experiences and precedent, there's a correlation between an inverse correlation, I guess, between doing poorly on my standardized test, but doing much better in the academic setting. So there you go. That should give you some ideas about the optional essay. Again, we talk about this really in depth in the guidebook as well. Letters of rec. So with letters of rec, you should have 3, and they're really providing a subjective assessment of your profile and your accomplishments. You should try to do it, at least get it 2 months ahead of time. We've worked with international candidates to kind of leave it to the last minute, and the letters are horrible, or they're just last minute, or they really kind of don't do justice to the candidate because the person's just kind of cobbling it together. So you want to give them plenty of time to do it, and we'll talk a little bit about like how you do it, but you want to give them plenty of time to ensure the quality, timely submission, and as a courtesy to them, so that they don't feel that you're kind of like rushing them to do it. So who should you approach? Professional, obviously. As a mid-career, I got letters from it's been a minute. It's been 10 years since I applied, but I think it definitely was from my current supervisor in the government. And I think it was definitely one from law school to show my academic prowess. And I think I got one more from a professional setting that complemented and provided yet another layer to my background. That was also professional because again, I had 8 years of experience. So professional is very important. Obviously, if you're a MPP, less important, maybe 1 professional, 2 academic. But as you get older, I would say 2 professional, 1 academic. And if you can't get the academic, this is where you explain it in your optional essay. There's the academic professors, even TAs, but obviously err on the side of professors than TAs, because TAs, like graduate student instructors, don't have the same gravitas as professors. But I'm also going to talk about who not to get it from as well. That's going to mention that. Volunteer experience. So you can have 2 academic, 1 volunteer experience if you don't have professional, or you can have 2 professional, one volunteer experience, for example, played up. And that also plays. I wouldn't do one volunteer experience, one extracurricular experience, and then one academic or professional. I wouldn't do that. I would say either volunteer or extracurricular as the alternative. And then you can also get a letter from a current student alum, but that really, I wouldn't say it's a letter per se, and that should be your last option, ditched option, because if you know the student as your really close friend, that could be a problem. And we'll talk a little bit about that, who not to ask. But you want to, I think at best you could have the student email the admissions committee. Again, don't quote me on this because I think the admissions committee could ignore it, but they could email the admissions committee and say, hey, I've known this guy. I think they'd be a fantastic candidate to the school. And the admissions committee can either choose to print it and include it in your file or just ignore it. Who not to ask? Don't ask family members or a friend because it can impact the veracity, the credibility of the letter, because a family or a friend, despite how crappy you are or great you are, will always write you a good letter. Don't ask somebody you're not 100% sure will support you. You need real advocates. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're kind of not sure and you feel like maybe they're lukewarm, then just don't pursue them. And then don't ask a VIP over a cheerleader. And I did say this, get a professor over a TA. That's more like a VIP versus a cheerleader. If you're really stuck and you don't have a professor, then get a TA if it can write a really great letter of recommendation for you. But at the end of the day, you want the person who's going to write the best letter of recommendation for you. And getting a VIP who doesn't know you at all can actually impact your ability to get a good letter. So don't do that unless the person's like the president of a country and they kind of know you versus a guy who was just a supervisor many moons ago. Then yeah, maybe the president will have a little more gravitas. You've got to kind of weigh it up on a scale, but typically always get the cheerleader over a VIP. Finally, how to do it, ask them in person if possible, but make sure they're accessible. You don't want to be chasing someone down to get a letter of rec for you because you can end up in a situation where they forget to do it and you're screwed. Provide a brag sheet. I think that's always important, kind of talking about the main highlights of what you've done in relation to them, that you can submit it in bullet point, give it to them, and then they could use it to kind of help jog their memory when they write the letter. Give them your resume, draft career essay, for example, of what you want to do, your goals, because that will also help them when they're drafting it, the letter. Outline the format of the letter and the deadline for submission. Make sure that they know that for them. And then politely follow up with an email and thank them after the application is submitted, because you never know when you may ask them again or so forth, and you want to kind of leave a good taste in their mouth afterwards. Financial aid, I'm going to quickly blitz through this. You got free funding, savings, and so forth. You got funding with requirements of companies, sponsorships. I know folks that got funded by their governments and so forth, so they have to go back and work in the government. And then you've got the funds for repayment, subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Here's a general scope of how expensive it is. It's super expensive and it keeps increasing. It's over $100,000 for like a mid-career program. So you can imagine that's a super hefty bill. I was super fortunate, as I told you guys. I got the CPL fellowship, as you see down there, which gave me like a $90,000+ scholarship or fellowship. So they paid for the bulk of this. It was like $95,000. So I was short like 10 grand, which obviously I had worked for many years. So I had the personal savings to cover it. But I also side hustled with, guess what? None other than Right Track Admissions. So I was taking on clients while I was in school. It was super easy. It's all kind of academically connected. And I budgeted. I was very careful. I lived in less expensive housing. I was very careful with not overspending. I did not want to take out any debt from school or have any debt from school. So when I graduated HKS, I actually graduated with a profit, which was super fortunate. I was very fortunate to get the fellowship. But to be honest with you guys, I spent months focusing on the financial aid as well as my application. So I really delved deep, and I was not going to miss the mark. I was a civil servant in the government, working as an international development lawyer. So I was like, dude, this sucks. If I don't get money for going to the Kennedy School, which is a program made for people like me, that really sucks. Like, I don't want to have to pay full tuition if I can avoid it. I wasn't working like in the private sector. So there are scholarships, fellowships. I told you guys about the one that I did, which was the Emirates Leadership Initiative Fellowship. I'm still incredibly indebted to that program for what they did and what I was given. There's other fellowships. They change constantly. There's new ones being added. I think there's 2 new ones. One that started this year. It's called WOLC for Israelis because the Wexner was canceled and concluded. So there's another one called WOLC. So I didn't include that in there, but that's a new one. So just remember that one. This was from last year. So that's a new one for this year. But again, it's only for Israeli students. so not open to other nationalities or Americans. Zuckerman is one that I had applied to because I was also doing a joint degree, or I had another degree, and that's one of the requirements of the Zuckerman. Great, great program. You got the Rubenstein with HBS. You've got the Gleitzman for social change, the George Leadership Fellowship, which is fantastic as well, also for HBS. The Black Family, which I think may also be being phased out, was for veterans, and I hope they come up with another one for the veterans. There's the one that I did that got recently renewed. The Equity Fellowship should still be there. I hope that didn't get thrown out as the baby with the bathwater with the whole DEI situation that's happening. I believe it's still there in some shape or form. The David Gergen, God rest his soul, he just passed away last week. Incredible man. I was so grateful to have known him. Really, I called him the godfather of CPL. So they created a summer fellowship after him, which I think hopefully will even increase more in value in terms of getting more funding, hopefully in the future. And guess what? Just added the slide today, literally fresh off the press, breaking news, new HKS fellowship called the American Service Fellowship. And this is from the dean. He sent it to all the students. I'm writing to share some exciting news. HKS is proud to launch the American Service Fellowship, a new program that will provide at least 50 U.S. public servants with full scholarships for our mid-career program next fall. What an amazing, amazing, amazing announcement. So important. I don't want to talk about my politics. I worked in the U.S. government. I'm proud I did. I worked under the Obama administration. It was an incredible period of my life, one I'll never forget. What's happening now, obviously, is, as I said, this too shall pass, but there's a lot going on, and a lot of people are out of employment, and this is just an incredible opportunity, I think, for people who've served this country to really get leadership training to go back and really crush it. So I'm so proud of the Kennedy School for doing this fellowship. I want to show it to you guys first and foremost because it is something incredible that just came out today. So if you were in the civil service like I was, working as a public servant, I could have applied to this. It didn't exist when I applied. But this is something that you can do as well if you're a mid-career person, applicant, and working in the U.S. As a civil servant. And doesn't necessarily need to be the federal government. It probably is state government, local government, municipal government, all that kind of stuff. In fact, they probably want a wide diversity. It says U.S. public servants. All right. Submission best practices, guys. All right. Keep your applications and everything, all your materials up to date. You don't want to submit old information. Also, update your letters of recommendation, especially if you're a reapplicant. You want to update those. So keep everything up to date. Imagine you start working on an application material in August, and then by end of November, something has significantly changed, but you forgot to update it in your resume or something. So you want to keep that updated. Requirements, check all the requirements, make sure that you've submitted everything and it's on track. So go through that checklist, create a checklist for you and go through it because there's so much stuff, which is why a lot of clients work with RightTrack because there's so many moving parts. I mean, I'm telling you, it's wild. You're like, okay, I just finished the perspectives essay and the personal history essay, and I knocked out the career essay, and I've got the professional contribution essay. Oh, did you do the reapplicants? Oh man, I forgot. Oh, hey, did you do the bio essay? What bio essay? Oh, did you do the? And I mean, there's so many little parts and components of this application, so you don't want to miss anything. So make sure that you go through the components, requirements for each one, proofread multiple times, so that you don't make mistakes when you submit the final piece of material. Before the deadline, make sure that you apply. I try to give a hard deadline to my clients somewhere around mid-November so that we don't kind of get squeezed up until that first day or two of December, and then there's a clog in the system as they're trying to submit, and then they lose their minds in some freaking zoo. Follow up after submission to make sure that you get the receipt. You should get a receipt. Take a screenshot of that so that you have it so that nobody can come back and say you never submitted. And then stay active, with everything you do, because you never know if you get waitlisted, then you can update that the school with what you've been doing since right now I can guarantee you if there were people on the wait list that applied this year, there probably were a lot more people that got off the wait list. I don't know, again, this is just, I'm surmising here, got off on the wait list now than ever before because certain people didn't accept their positions because they didn't know what was happening with the school. Here are the essay requirements. Bam, look at that. I even made it for you guys. So you can go through each one and be like, okay, background statement. Did it complete? Yes. Did I complete? Yes. Did I complete? Yes. And just go through each one of those. So definitely create something like this for your program. I think I did it for each one of the programs, but this is just a sample, and you'll get this in the guidebook as well. All right. Official deadlines. financial aid application available to applicants in November. Application, this is a little bit older. This is from last year. This year, we don't know what it is yet. It's early December. So December 2025, probably early that first week. It typically, I think, is like the first, I can't remember. It was the last Friday or the first Monday or something like that. But it's around usually the first, second, or third of December. Or, early January, you figure out, you have to submit your fellowship applications and typically most of your financial aid applications. By March, you should have found out if you got admitted or not. So you got interviewed as well in between this period, right? You get the interviews for the fellowships. You have to respond by April, should you decide to pursue the degree. All right. All right. Whew. Okay. So this is something I recently added. Is with all the uncertainty, what you need to know, and should you apply to the Kennedy School? I say apply anyway. Why? Because you have no idea what's going to happen next year. Next year, we could be in a situation where the administration, does a complete about face and everything changes, and they're like, you know what, we're good. We've reached an agreement with Harvard, and we're good to go. And so you didn't apply because you thought there was going to be a sticking point. So now you're feeling like a schmuck because you should have applied and you didn't. So I would say apply anyway because you have no idea what's going to happen. But hedge. Also apply to other peer programs. Princeton, the SPAI, I think that's the School of Public and International Affairs. SIPA, the School of International and Public Affairs. Yale, Jackson, Johns Hopkins, SAIS. There's so many of them. I was working with a client last year who initially wanted to go in, Harvard or bust. And I was like, do not do that. Please, please apply to other programs. So he applied. He agreed to apply to Columbia and to Johns Hopkins. And he got into the other two programs. And then because of all the stuff that's happening, he decided to pursue his degree at, I think, SAIS. So again, because we hedged, another applicant only applied to the Kennedy School and didn't get in. So you have to be very cautious to hedge. So I say apply anyway, regardless. You never know what's going to change, but hedge by applying to other programs, please. There's no reason not to do that. Lock in funding and visa. I think that's very, very important. As soon as you get admitted, quickly rush to get your interview as soon as possible. In some cases, they're not granting interviews. In other cases, they are. But just get it. Do what you can. What's in your hands. So as soon as you get your admission letter, run off to get that interview so that you can go through all the processes. I did a quick video on this, and we also have this in other webinars, and you're more than welcome to email us about it or do your own research on it, but we also kind of show you how to scrub your social media profiles. So I think that's very, very important as well to kind of consider and how you should do it, delete certain posts, check out people who liked your certain posts that may be controversial and delete those. Make obviously your profile public, but your bio and all that information should be professional, not something crazy. Doing certain things to scrub it to make sure that you are not in any way. And then if you ask like, well, what is considered controversial? Anything you say about that government, about the US government, anything you criticize about that school potentially, anything you say that kind of really hones on your moral turpitude, drinking, taking drugs, doing things that would be deemed to be socially not disavowed, just don't put them in there. Just err on the safe side. Sorry, but that's the reality we live in right now. Capitalize on the possible application tip. I hate to say this, but it is a fact that we have to kind of keep in mind. So there was a New York Times article that just said that international students can use the University of Toronto. The University of Toronto has allowed Harvard Kennedy School to teach remotely there. Who knows? Maybe they're even going to get some faculty to fly out to Toronto and teach some of the classes. I don't know, but that's where some international students can go. I love Toronto. My mom lives there, so I think it's a great opportunity. But also, it is expensive, and is it worth flying all the way to Toronto to take classes in the Kennedy School? I don't know. It's up to you guys. But again, U.S. citizens may face a lighter competition in the 2025-2026 window should there be a dip in applicants. So that's something to kind of consider from that perspective. And then constantly look for official updates from the school and also from the government. So that's something that's very, very important to do as well, to kind of always check the school first, to see what's going on, but you can also kind of keep track. I think it's like with US CIS to kind of keep track of what's going on also internationally. But don't think what's happening, on a federal level. But don't just look at the federal level and assume there's a trickle down to Harvard. There may be a difference. So always check with Harvard first to see what's going on. And I'm sure Harvard's going to be sending out constant updates into this admissions cycle. How to maximize your HKS application. Guys, we're almost out of time. I've got 2 questions. I'm going to leave this to you. This is one of my most important, I think, something I've really, really loved putting this together, this slide, but also I talk about this ad nauseum in the guidebook so that you can really maximize your time at the Kennedy School. Something I feel like I was able to do because I talked to a lot of alum before I started so that I didn't kind of fall victim, be like, God, I regret, I wish I had done this. So these are things that I can relate to you guys that would really help you out. Please check out the guidebook, download it, because you'll have all that information there to kind of really maximize your time, because it's an expensive degree. You want to maximize that time, especially if you're only there for 1 year. So let's quickly go through who we are, and then I'm going to quickly knock out these questions. This is our approach, our comprehensive application support services for HKS, guiding, story crafting, editing, timekeeping, to really allow you to kind of stand out and knock out this application. To be perfectly honest with you guys, I say this with utter conviction. I think we're the best in class. I do not think there's anybody out there in the world that is as good as us, given my own experiences as the founder of the company and what I've basically created, that guidebook, video series, all kinds of stuff to really be able to be the preeminent company that focuses on the Kennedy School application, especially that school, and policy programs in general. Having done my master's also in Cambridge, and a lot of my experts are just phenomenal and hyper focused on this type of degree. So I think we're the best in class here. And you can see right there, there's a cohort case study. We worked with a country's government, helping their applicants into the Kennedy School, and we were able to increase admission by almost 400% year on year. And that was purely because we were able to help them figure out the right story and put together incredible applications, really led by the applicants with our guidance. And it really made a monster difference. So this is classic proof and something that was a historic record for that country. These are my experts, absolutely phenomenal experts. Some of them have graduated from the Kennedy School. Some of them are doing PhD programs in other schools, law students, law graduates, really incredible people that serve to help get that incredible track record that we got, that I just showed you guys. That really will be able to allow you to stand out in terms of your application materials and understand your profile and background, because they're so well traveled, speak different languages and so forth. And for a limited time, guys, if you hit us up, we'll give you, actually the first person to email us and call us will get a free consultation with yours truly and a free Kennedy School admissions guide. So what are you waiting for, guys? Please do that. Take advantage of that. Guys, quickly want to answer those 2 questions. Would you recommend reapplying if you didn't get in the first time? Yes. Yes, I do recommend reapplying. There's some stuff there that you also want to kind of consider. But also something else to kind of think about as well is you can only apply 3 times to the Kennedy School. So make sure that you apply, when you apply again, not to have something that shows a significant difference or some kind of difference in your application materials. And you have to write a re-applicant essay. So that's where you want to put it in. We also put in the information in there in terms of how to scrub your profile. I think we actually have a blog post about that. And then finally, feel free to contact us. And as I said, the first person that emails us, I will be happy to schedule a consultation call with you. Now, guys, we have another webinar coming up. I think it's in about a week or 2 that I'm going to really dive deep into the essays themselves. So make sure to tune in for that. And then thank you, guys. Finished on the hour mark. You can tell I've been doing this a long time. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next webinar.